I want to shed light on what's been going on in Syria right now. As some of you may or may not know, Syria has endured a ongoing 12-year-long civil war. There's a lot of nuance to it, so this is going to sound like an extremely watered-down version of the whole Syrian conflict and Syrian civil war. I really, really urge you to do your own research. I urge you to search up what's been going on in Syria for the past 12 years. It's still ongoing. But what I do want to address is the humanitarian crisis that's going on right now. Over 12 million Syrians have been forcefully displaced, including the 6.8 million Syrians that have been internally displaced within their own country. And 5.4 million Syrians are living as refugees in neighboring countries. And with the 6.8 plus million internally displaced Syrians, 70% of the population is in dire need of humanitarian aid, and 90% of the population live below the poverty line. And what started the Syrian refugee crisis and the civil war dates back to March of 2011, when protesters were protesting against the Syrian government and the current president, I'm going to butcher his name, so if I mispronounce his name, please correct me, President Bashar al-Assad. These protesters just didn't basically agree with his tyrant regime, and they wanted him ousted, basically. And in response, these protesters were violently shot at. So the protesters grouped and fought back. They grouped together, created rebel groups, and fought back in resistance. And that sparked the whole ongoing civil war. And again, I urge you to do your own independent research. There's a lot of nuance to it. A lot of countries get involved into it. Russia gets involved. Iran gets involved. Lebanon gets involved. There's a whole lot. It's messy, but what I want to draw attention to is there are innocent civilians that are being attacked, innocent civilians that are being killed, like every single day. There are bombs being dropped on in Syria. I don't know if you heard recently, well, not even recently, last month, but Israel just launched two missile attacks to two Syrian, airports. And if you also didn't know, Israel also has stake in Syria. Israel also has illegal settlers in Syria. This whole thing, oh my goodness, y'all, we need a free Syria. Help Syria, help the Syrians. And we can't just keep on disregarding whatever is happening in the Middle East as, oh, that's just another thing that happens in the Middle East. Oh, Syria, that whole area is really messy. That is such ignorant thinking that you can just, and do you understand how much privilege you have to just say and completely disregard a country and say, not even a country, okay? Because you're not just saying, oh, that's just what happens in Syria, let's just ignore it. You're saying, oh, that's just what happens in the Middle East. That's just what happens in Africa. Their whole, that whole region is corrupt. Why do you think it's corrupt in the first place? We're letting it happen. We're letting corruption happen. Oh, but what can I do? I'm just one person. What? If we all rally together, we can help. Y'all, please, so many countries, Syria, Sudan, Congo, Palestine, let's keep this up. Panama, too, I gotta make a video on Panama and the copper mines. Oh, my goodness, there's so many countries that need our help. We need to help our brothers and sisters out. And to those people that say, why do you care so much? Stop caring. Frick you, honestly. I care because I see my people, I see myself in these people. I see my family in these people. You know why? Because my mom survived a genocide, okay? The Khmer Rouge, my mom survived a genocide. My grandma survived a genocide. My mom had to be buried in the ground. she survived a genocide. My dad, he survived the Vietnam War. When he was a kid, his whole family, my whole father's family. So when you say don't care, I can't. I'm sorry, you lost me there. Because these people are my people. We are one and the same. They are my family. And I'm going to fight tooth and nail for their freedom, for their liberation, for their rights. And there are so many violations. There are so many humanitarian violations that are happening right now, like in Syria, onto innocent civilians, onto children. You don't care about, like, oh my goodness. Y'all, please wake up. Wake up. We need to help people. People are dying. Like...
What's going on in Syria and how is it related to the war in Gaza? U.S. forces in Syria and Iraq say they've been attacked at least 50 times by pro-Iranian armed groups. One of those groups, called the Islamic Resistance in Iraq, released this video. It says it shows them targeting U.S. bases in Syria. In response to those attacks, the U.S. has been doing this: missile strikes in eastern Syria. In this one, U.S. officials say they hit a training facility and a weapons store which belong to these groups. So what's the connection to Gaza? Well, it's important to note that Hamas, which is fighting Israel in Gaza right now, is also backed by Iran. More than 13,000 Palestinians have been killed in more than a month of Israeli bombing in Gaza. And Iran has been pretty vocal condemning this. But the U.S. is supporting Israel's war. So for the pro-Iranian groups in Syria and Iraq, the U.S. has become even more of a target. And things are happening elsewhere in Syria too. Russia and the Syrian government have stepped up their bombardment in rebel-held territories in northwest Syria, killing dozens of civilians, including women and children. Analysts say they're taking advantage of the world's attention being on Gaza. So with the involvement of all of these different countries and interests in the Middle East, there are fears of this escalating into a regional conflict.
The concern is with horizontal escalation, i.e. that in response to the Israeli incursions, the airstrikes that are taking place, the Iranians have been telling everybody overtly and loudly that they will proliferate, they will escalate if necessary.
Allah'ım. Gitti. Binalar gitti. Ayva.
This is Syria 12 years ago, and this is how it looks today. Let me tell you 4 facts you should know about Syria. Today, 90% of the population are living in poverty, but they are still known by their generosity. And imagine that 12 million Syrians have been struggling for food, but their cuisine is one of the best in the world. And 1 in 2 people have been displaced, as homes and buildings are the most beautiful and the oldest are destroyed. The infrastructure was highly damaged, although Damascus was one of the oldest inhabited city in history. Recent earthquake has intensified the past 12 years of suffering. Syria must not be forgotten.
If you're Syrian or if you're not, please don't skip. This is important. Might be important. Okay, so as I saw in my comments, every time I post something about Syria or I post something that this is flag behind me, I get a lot of hate and a lot of people thinks that this is the terrorism flag or the French flag, and it's a little bit stupid. Okay, so before I start, please don't comment bad stuff because you're gonna get blocked. So yeah. Okay, I'm gonna start with this flag, the correct flag. and it's the official one. Okay, so this flag was first used in it was first adopted in 1958. And it was to represent Syria as a part of the United Arab Republic. Yeah. It was used until 1961, I think. Yeah, it was 1961. I think so, sorry. And it was re-adopted again in 1980. Yes, and it's still the official flag. And the reason why the Free Syrian doesn't love this flag, because this flag, me as a Syrian, when I see this flag, I don't remember any of Syria. I remember blood, I remember dead people, I remember just war, because this flag was used on the planes of the government and army when they were bombing us. And then there is this flag, the revolution flag. Okay, it's not the French flag, it's not the terrorism flag, it's not a flag we made. It's not that. It's the flag that we used when we got our independence from the French occupation. So the complete opposite. So when we had the French occupation, when we got our independence, we had this flag. Yeah. I'm not gonna tell you guys the terrorism part, because it's gonna take a long time and I don't have that much time. But yeah. But this flag, it was basically on the days of French occupation when we got our independence. And the Free Syrians didn't make it. We just got the flag that reminds us of our independence and our, history. Because me as a Syrian, when I see this flag, I don't remember war. I remember how we got our independence. So Free Syrian used this flag to show that we're free, and then we got our independence from this one. So it only reminds me of freedom. So.
The search for the living has ended in northwest Syria. It's now about removing the bodies trapped under the hundreds of buildings that collapsed following the earthquakes that hit Turkey and Syria on Monday. Those who responded to the human tragedy say the world failed the people in the opposition-controlled enclave. The civil defense, also known as White Helmets, said people died because repeated requests for rescue support teams and heavy machinery never came.
I have been deeply affected by the voices we heard from under the rubble. They were crying for help. In one instance, we worked for 4 hours before we were able to reach a man, but it was too late. He died.
Destruction and devastation are not only in the opposition-held areas in the north, but in heavily populated government-held cities like Aleppo, Hama, and Latakia as well. The United Nations estimates more than 5 million people are now homeless. It's a new wave of displacement. Already, there are nearly 7 million Syrians who have been displaced in their own country due to the war that began more than a decade ago. Many are in the north, where 4 million depended on aid before the earthquake destroyed more lives.
Obama was the perfect face and manager of empire. We all know that Bush started 2 illegal wars with countries who never attacked us, Afghanistan and Iraq. But Obama also started 2 wars, the NATO interventions in Libya and Syria, which far less people know about. Because Obama put a progressive veneer on the horrific actions of American imperialism. He was far less brazen in his rhetoric compared to a neoconservative like George W. Bush. But behind the scenes, he was doing all the same kind of horrible stuff. Not only continuing the occupations of Afghanistan and Iraq that Bush started, but also funneling just millions of dollars in arms and money into the hands of US-backed extremist groups in Syria and Libya. Under Obama, the US and NATO became deeply involved in the Syrian civil war, and to this day, we're still occupying the Syrian oil fields. Imagine that. It must be the only part of the country that needs democracy, the part with all the oil. And the NATO intervention in Libya that Obama oversaw might have been even worse. NATO essentially toppled Libya's central government with no exit plan whatsoever. A bunch of warlords and extremist groups, some of whom had been funded by the US previously, began fighting each other in the power vacuum that NATO created. And the people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton who directly oversaw this have never been held accountable whatsoever. A lot of people don't even know that this happened, but Libya is still in a state of chaos to this day. There was an open-air slave trade that returned to the country. They went from being one of the most prosperous countries in Africa to one of the poorest. Standard of living for the Libyan people just got way worse across the board. All a result of NATO's horrific intervention overseen by Barack Obama, who also oversaw some US drone programs where 90% of the people killed were not the intended target, meaning not terrorists, meaning civilians. Obama is not a progressive. He used progressive rhetoric to distract you from the things that he was doing behind the scenes, but he's a tool of the military-industrial complex, big banks, and multinational corporations, just like every other politician.
This is allegedly a river of human blood. This is the Barada River near Damascus in Syria. Now, the officials in Syria say that this is due to the heavy rain and the colors within the soil. The civilians have other beliefs. Assad's regime is notorious for committing massacres in secret of thousands. Many Syrians call the prison there a cemetery and not a prison. And to me, regardless of this allegedly being human or not, even if this is of natural causes, I feel it's a sign to the world to stop being so blind to the horrific things that are happening there. Please let me know if you guys want to know more about Assad's regime and what's been going on in Syria.
Israel struck Syria's two main airports last night to put them out of service, according to Al Jazeera, which is thought to have been done to stop Iranian assistance. Israel has also dropped over 6,000 bombs on Gaza since Sunday. The IDF also claims they have a list of everyone who participated in the terror attack and that the Air Force will reach every one of them. The UK will send part of the Royal Navy to Israel as a show of support and to conduct surveillance flights over Israel. The US and Qatar have reached what's been described as a quiet understanding to not give Iran any of the $6 billion that was unfrozen, according to CBS News. 27 Americans have now been killed in the attacks on Israel. 14 are still missing, and Secretary Blinken in Israel today saying this is the equivalent of 10 9/11s, with that reportedly in reference to the difference in populations. Percentage-wise, it would be like if 48,000 people were killed in America. Additionally, we have now seen France ban pro-Palestine protests, and that because they say they are, quote, likely to generate disturbances to the public order. And as this continues to develop, let me know what you think in those comments, and follow to stay in the loop.
Today's world leader is Bashar al-Assad, the 19th president of Syria since July 17, 2000. He grew up during his father's 29-year presidency, but was pretty quiet, reserved, and disinterested with politics. But while in medical school in London, his brother died and Bashar suddenly became the heir apparent to the presidency. When his father died, the constitution was amended so he could become eligible for the office, and he's won 4 rigged presidential elections since then. Assad started out by promising reform, but has since ruled with an iron fist. His actions in response to Arab Spring protests in 2011 caused some of the military to defect and led to the country's ongoing civil war, during which Assad has been responsible for a laundry list of human rights violations, including the frequent use of chemical weapons against civilians. In fact, his government and allies have caused over 90% of all casualties since the war began. Unlike most Arab leaders, Assad's regime is officially secular, but has done a lot to exacerbate sectarian tensions in the country. He's faced calls from around the world to resign for over a decade now, including from other Middle Eastern leaders. But the situation has gotten so bad that most of the world has just completely given up on ever normalizing ties with Syria as long as Assad is president, although the country was very recently readmitted to the Arab League. There's also been widespread calls for Assad to be prosecuted by the International Criminal Court, especially as the details of his human rights abuses have come to light.
Tonight, at the direction of President Biden, 2 F-15 fighter jets launched airstrikes in eastern Syria at that weapons facility that is used by Iran's Revolutionary Guard and proxy forces that are backed by Iran. They were in response to attacks by those groups on U.S. troops in both Syria and Iraq. Over 40 in the last 3 weeks alone that have injured nearly 50 American service members. And just today, U.S. troops were attacked again in Syria. And in another sign of the increased tensions in the region, an American Reaper drone costing about $30 million was shot down in the Red Sea by the Iranian-backed Houthi rebels. They had fired missiles last month toward Israel, which were shot down by a U.S. naval ship. President Biden has repeatedly warned Iran, a longtime adversary of Israel, against getting involved in the war in the Middle East.
France issued an arrest warrant against the Syrian president. On November 15th, French judicial authorities issued arrest warrants for Syrian President Bashar al-Assad and 3 others for alleged involvement in war crimes. The warrant follows an investigation by French judges into 2 chemical weapons attacks in Syria. In August 2013, more than 1,000 people were killed in chemical attacks in 2 Syrian suburbs. The Syrian government has been widely accused by the international community of carrying out the attacks, and a joint inquiry involving the United Nations found that the Syrian government has repeatedly used chemical weapons against civilians. The government has denied involvement in the chemical attacks. This marks the first international arrest warrant that has been issued against Bashar al-Assad. In 2011, anti-government protests in Syria were met by a crackdown from the Syrian government that escalated into a civil war. The arrest warrant and investigation into Assad and the other officials was carried out by French judges from the Specialized Unit for Crimes Against Humanity and War Crimes of the Paris Judicial Court. Under the concept of universal jurisdiction, national courts have the power to prosecute any person for serious crimes committed anywhere in the world. Lawyers and activists involved in the case have called it a step towards justice for victims of the 2013 chemical attack.
Tonight, the U.S. announcing new airstrikes in eastern Syria, targeting a training facility and a safe house used by Iranian-affiliated groups. The attacks come just 4 days after the U.S. launched this airstrike on a weapons facility, and after hitting other targets on October 26th, all of the strikes in Syria.
We have been very clear to countries in the region that we are incredibly keen on ensuring that this conflict does not spread.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin in a statement saying the U.S. will defend itself and its personnel. It's the latest response from the Pentagon to a spike in attacks from Iranian-backed groups on U.S. forces. There have been at least 47 attacks on U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria since October 17th. Since then, at least 1 American has died of a heart attack, with at least 56 others suffering minor injuries. These strikes come on the same day the Pentagon announced 5 U.S. service members were killed in a helicopter crash while training. The accident happened here in the eastern Mediterranean, just off the coast of Cyprus. The Pentagon not releasing a lot of details, but says the helicopter was undergoing a routine refueling mission during training when it somehow suffered a mishap, causing it to crash. Search and rescue efforts began immediately.
And Megan's with me. Megan, the Pentagon suggesting this may not be the last retaliatory strike.
Kate, that's right. The Pentagon has emphasized that the U.S. will not hesitate to take what they're calling further necessary measures if these attacks by Iranian-backed groups continue.
طلع أنا ولا كلمة أنا أحسن منك طالعين
لا تحزن إن الله معنا لا تحزن إن الله معنا
لما تخذل كل برايا بصيح يا رب لما الشفا يقلب وبا ويتسكر الباب لما الأخلا ينكروا من الماضي ما طاب لما في إدلب النسا بصيح يا رب صيح يا رب أطفال ومن تحت الردم وش نشرح لها هتعرف
أركض بشمس التراب راح ترجعي لي رجعي لي
هلا التدفئة يعني موضوع أساسي لأنه عندك 4 شهور برد يعني إجباري بدك تشتري مواد تدفئة. أصبر كين بالخيا إذا ما في تدفئة معناته الأولاد بيتجمدوا بالبرد. ممكن الكبير يتحمل شوي لكن صعبة، بالأخص إذا إجت شتوية قاسي. مثل السنة هاي مع غلاء المواد التدفئة صارت مبلغ كتير كبير بالنسبة لنا.
تخيلوا بهالجو البارد انه في شخص عم ينام ضمن هاي الحصالة هاي. خلينا ندخل ونشوف المكان اللي عم ينام فيه ونسمع قصته. ضحى صوتي حان موتي أينكم. السلام عليكم.
السلام ورحمة الله.
ليش نايمين؟
يلا ما عندي حدا. كنت بتركيا أنا، كنت جيران أنطاكيا، إجا مسكونة ترك سفرنا سوريا، إجابوا هجني من البيت، صرت أنام بالطرقات، لقيت هالحصالة صرت أنام بيها.
شنو أكثر شيء يحس بقلبك؟
أكثر شيء الحمد لله مو أختي مهينة.
ايش تتمنى أنت؟
أتمنى عندي أهل وعندي بيت. أصعب شيء الواحد يكون ما عنده أهل غنم بالشوارع.
من شتاء أنقذوني. Don't let me go, and if it's right.
Kadir.
Abi.
Nasılsın canım benim?
Abi neredesin?
Ben iyiyim, hiçbir problem yok şu an. Eğitim araştırma hastanesindeyim ben herhalde. Artık neresi uygun sonra yönlendirecekler. Annemler ne yapıyorlar annemler? Hepsi seni bekliyor. Hepsi kurtuldu. Hepsi kurtuldu mu Nazlı? Sesi. Allah senden bin kat razı olsun kardeşim. Allah seni düşünmesin bak bunu yüreğimle.
When the Syrian revolution started to the moment I'll take my last breath on this earth, I will never stop speaking out against Bashar's crimes. I will never stop speaking out against the criminal that killed his own people. I lost my home, I lost my family, I lost my childhood. I left Syria with scars that I will never be able to recover from. And you calling him Bashar the king? The king of who? The king of what? My brothers and sisters are now in Syria fighting out against his regime with guns pointed to their heads and missiles flying over them. What would I look like to them? What would I look like to them with food in my fridge and a roof over my head, not speaking out against his crimes? What would I look like to them? What would you look like to them? The least we could do as Syrians who are living outside of Syria right now is raise awareness and speak out against his crimes. You have an audience, you have a voice, so use it. Don't lose hope. Just because you left Syria and you're in a somewhat safer place now, that doesn't mean your people don't depend on you still. They're depending on you. They want your voice. Allah Suriya Hurriyu Bas. Peace out.
I am literally fucking disgusted right now. I live in Syria and we've been in war for 7 years. We suffered a lot in this city, okay? We suffered a lot. We lost a lot of people we love. And we suffered from a war for 7 years. We have no electricity, we have no gas, we have nothing. We have nothing that a human being can possibly want, okay? Like the normal human things, the normal human needs we don't even have. And now the earthquake happened and not a single person tried to help us. Yes, I know it happened in Turkey and I'm so sorry for Turkey. And I know that there are a lot of people that suffered in Turkey, but we suffered too, okay? We are humans. We are fucking humans. Stop that shit and stop like not helping us in any way. Like what did we do? We are humans. It's not our fault that the war happened and everything happened. We need your help. People are dying and they don't have a place to go to. Their homes are crushed down. There are literally childs that all of their people, all of their families are dead now. Please, like anything can help. Please just share this and to just let people know that Syria is suffering. Please share anything. Donate everything you can. Please just help them. Like, it's not fair. It's not our fault that we were born in a country that we can't even fucking get out of, okay? It's not our fault that our passports does not allow us to go anywhere in the fucking world. It's not our fault. At least just help the people that are dying. At least just help the people that are literally like doesn't have homes, doesn't have a family right now. And they don't know where to go because they don't have money. Just please help anyone. Please be aware of this. Please just don't make the media foolish you and say like, oh my God, we are helping Syria. No, no one is helping Syria. And I'm going to prove it to you. I'm going to show you a picture that says like not a single plane got to Syria. Not a single fucking plane. So please just share this and just be aware of it and donate anything you can. Please.
رسالتي أنا كشخص عشت الحرب لمدة 10 سنة ونفس القاتل اللي كان موجود هون موجود في أوكرانيا، أنك تصمد. الصمود وحب الأرض هو أكبر وأقوى من أي سلاح كان موجود على وجه الكرة الأرضية.
11 سنة مريت وكأنه أول يوم عم نتظاهر فيه.
نحن وأوكرانيا نتشابه في هذا الموضوع، عدونا واحد. نطلب من الشعب الأوكراني التلاحم والوقوف ضد هذا الغزو الروسي المجرم.
A peaceful uprising against the president of Syria 10 years ago turned into a full-scale civil war. The conflict has left more than 380,000 people dead, devastated cities, and drawn in other countries. Even before the conflict began, many Syrians were complaining about high unemployment, corruption, and a lack of political freedom under President Bashar al-Assad, who succeeded his father, Hafez, after he died in 2000. In March 2011, pro-democracy demonstrations erupted in the southern city of Dera, inspired by uprisings in neighboring countries against repressive rulers when the Syrian government used deadly force to quash the dissent. Protests demanding the
نسألك يا من هو الله الذي لا إله
Assalamu alaikum. This is an appeal to every brother around the world. Our One Nation's team is on the same ground distributing mattresses and blankets in this campaign called Days Warm Hearts. Behind me, huge number of displaced people, homeless ones, are suffering and facing the difficulties of the winter every year. We are the same job every year distributing the humanitarian aid, and this is our part of our permanent humanitarian aid, distributing the warm items like the mattresses and blankets behind me. Huge number of displaced people and homeless ones who are needy, most needy people sharing this worn out pencils. So in need to receive these blankets and mattresses. So huge thanks to you. I just want to say huge thanks to every single person donated and supported this project really from the deep of the heart. Thank you so much, and Jazakallah khair.
I'm in a town called Jandaris in northwest Syria. It was one of the places here that was really severely impacted by the earthquakes. You can see just some of the devastation behind me. We've seen these scenes in Turkey, but the difference is that the people here, so they're not a single member of an international rescue team came to try and help dig people who were still alive out of the rubble. And we understand that there were 1,200 victims in this town alone.
يا من صليت بكل الأنبياء يا من في قلبك رحمة للناس يا من ألفت قلوبا بالإسلام يا حبيبي يا شافعي يا رسول الله بأمي وأبي.
The Syrian civil defense who has this desperate plea to the world to try and help his people. I want you to listen to a little bit of what he had to say.
It's a very difficult task for us. We need help. We need the international community to do something to help us, to support us. Northwest Syria now, it's a disaster area. We need help from everyone to save our people.
I am not raising money for Syria. It's the biggest lie you will hear.
We are right now in the northwest side of Syria.
They are in Syria right now. Listen to this.
Most of the region. Right now, we are establishing tents. So in this location, from this location, I want to thank Mr. Salim and his supporters.
All of you are doing this. So yes, we are helping Turkey and Syria in helping as many victims as we can. If you want to donate, click the link in my bio and give whatever you can.